you guys are doing some great stuff. So
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate that. Well, I know you have a busy schedule, so we'll get right started here.
sounds good.
Welcome, everyone. With my under 10 words description, you may be able to guess who our guest is today. Faith, family, grocery store shelves, Super Bowl, American Underdog. If you thought it's Kurt Warner, you are absolutely correct. The incredible Kurt Warner is here. Welcome, Kurt, and thank you for your life of faith, for your wife's service to our country, and congratulations to both of you on all your successes. And thank you for joining us on Little Star Light.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you guys having me.
This is exciting. So we're going to dive right in on what can help audiences from what you have achieved. Having a moral compass is useful for inner peace, success, and finding one's way. How did you develop yours?
Well, I mean, I think like all of us, you develop it over time. And with all of that, it's still evolving. You know, I'm still learning every day and still trying to stay open to, to different thought processes and learning from different people. But I think that, the biggest part of it is my upbringing. I was raised in a single parent home, even though, my father didn't live with us, but still had a relationship with my father, but was raised by my mom, and she was a very faithful woman. And we went to Catholic school all through high school. We went to church every Sunday. And so even though I don't sit here and profess to know everything or to think that my faith was anywhere close to where it is now, then, that there was that example in front of me every single day. Whether that was, hearing the Bible or, going to religion class and studying that part of it, or just watching how my mom lived and worked, the things that were important to her. I was raised in Iowa, and I like to think Iowa has some of the best people in our country that have strong values, have good morals. And so I was raised around a lot of people that I think believed in hard work and treating people the right way and being good people. And so I think that's where it all started, is that, you kind of get some of those things ingrained in who you are from an early age. And you see those examples and you say, okay, I want to follow that. And then I think all of us, as we live, we start to decipher who we want to be and what we want to represent and how we want to live our lives. And so it's been a continual process for me as I've made mistakes along the way, going, okay, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that kind of person. Or as I've watched other people and gone, I want to be more like that. And then, of course, my faith was a huge compass for me. Watching the life of Jesus and just modeling what he models. And I think more than anything, it's just loving people. I grew up in an area, and I know a couple of you are probably too young, and maybe some of your listeners are too young, but I grew up in the area where we had these WWJD wristbands that, for a period of time, everybody wore these WWJD, what would Jesus do wristbands. And, the whole idea was, every situation you're in, think about, what would Jesus do in this situation? And, so, you kind of have that growing up. And as I've evolved over the years, I've come to realize that I think we were doing it wrong when we were looking at what would Jesus do. And I think that the proper phrase should have been, why would Jesus do what he did? And the bottom line is that everything he did out of love. He met people in different places. He met people that were, living a lifestyle that wasn't necessarily conducive with Christianity, or, meeting people where they're at. And he met those people there because he loved people and he wanted to, have a relationship with people. And so that's really been, I think, what I've tried to model and what I've tried to live by in my life, is that I just want to love people. And I want to be here to judge people or tell people when they're right or when they're wrong, or what's right and what's wrong. I want to model who Jesus was. And I think he was a person that lived surrounded by love, and his actions were dictated by love. And, for me, that's how I try to, when you talk about the moral compass, that's kind of at the heart of everything, is love people and act in every manner, based on loving those different people, however well you know them or don't know them. And that's really kind of been what's, I guess, my north, on my compass, is my due north is, love. When all else fails, fall back on love. And I've tried to live in that manner as much as I can throughout my life.
That's awesome. And you spoke about something so important, the modeling, because you want to be able to see, and that's why we're so excited to have you on as well as is to be able to model that. People know you from a lot of different things, but this is something where to know yourself too and to come about that. And so what are the other things that you modeled about? We know with the Super Bowl, people over 100 million people, 100 to 200 million people watch a Super Bowl. You happen to be watching one when you were a little boy,
Yeah.
and you looked at that and said, okay, and you strove for that. And so now Adrian and I come from a professional tennis background. So we know the rarity of what someone can accomplish from wanting to do a sport or loving a sport to being able to get to one of the highest levels. And so I must say congratulations to you, because your son just was drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? How is that now for you as a dad to know he's following in your footsteps?
Yeah, he just signed with Tampa and is going to kind of go the route that I went. He actually didn't get drafted. He actually signed as a free agent, just like me, went undrafted. And so I guess, when you talk about modeling, I guess, he's got a model in his house to say, okay, I didn't get drafted. Everything didn't play out exactly like I wanted to, but, it didn't for dad either. And look what dad was able to accomplish. But, it's always different when it's your kids. When so much is out of your control, yet at the same time, you want to do anything and everything you can to help them achieve their dreams and their goals. And then at the same time, my journey is not his journey. And, as easy as it is for me to always say, hey, well, I did this and I did that and I went through this, I realized that, just like I was talking earlier, that my faith journey was not my mom's faith journey, even though she gave me a great model growing up. I had to develop my own faith over time. And so it's figuring out that balance of being dad and just supporting my son, being a former undrafted player that had success in the NFL, which is what my son wants to do, and trying to, project a lot of that stuff on him. So the biggest thing for me is I'm just always trying to make myself available. Like, how can I help? I'll help you today. We actually just went out and I threw passes to him, so he's got that built in. Hey, dad, I need to go catch some passes. All right, I can go throw it to you. The other times we'll sit down and talk football. Other times we'll just talk ball. There was times during the season where he was frustrated and he's like, dad, have you ever felt like this? Did you ever go through moments like this? And so, being able to share, yeah, there were some low moments. There were some tough times where I doubted, I was going to get an opportunity or what that was going to look like. So, so all of that stuff is there. But I want to always try to fall back on being dad and not being a coach or not being, the guy that did it, did what you want to do. And so always falling back from that standpoint. But, I'm more nervous watching my boys play or watching my girls do something than I ever was doing it myself. And a big part of that is because, and you guys know, when you're in control, it's one thing. Like when you're good at something and you've got it, it's easy to kind of immerse yourself and go, okay, I know I'm good at this. I'm confident in this. When you have to just sit back and hope that your, kids have what it takes, or you have to watch them and you want them to succeed so bad, but you have absolutely no control over it. You're sitting in the stands and all you get to do is cheer. It is a different feeling, but it's also a special feeling. There's again, I had great success, but there's nothing that I enjoy more than watching my kids have success. I get so much joy out of that, even the littlest things. And so that's kind of my role now is I'm here to be whatever he needs me to be. But most importantly, I'm here to be dad, to support him and to encourage him and to be there when the tough times are there and to celebrate through the great times. And so that's the role I'm trying to play, although it's really, really hard because I do have experience in the other side of it where I want to share all of that with him, but I understand that he's going to have to walk his own journey.
Now you made an important point. Your son wasn't drafted in the NFL. He was an undrafted, but it's kind of like for me, he was drafted by God in a sense, like when you're called to God and you come forth on something, which brings me back to what's so super important to you is doing the right thing. And so some people have experiences, they have their perception. If you have, like all of us could see one thing happen across the street, we might have 4 different perspectives of that. So what's like a go-to either scripture or prayer or your words of wisdom? It could even be a song, something that comes to you that when you're unsure of what how you're supposed to respond or what the right thing is to do? Do you pause? Do you go forward? Do you pray? What's your like initial reaction when it's like, uh-oh, here's a situation. I need to, figure this out.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of those come into play. When I'm not sure, I'll have a lot of conversations with a lot of different issues that are going on in our country right now. I sit down with my wife mostly, and we'll have that conversation. What do you think about this? And how do you feel about this? And, what should we do in this type of situation? I think there's other times that, I just feel like when, you try to stay connected and you try to follow God or his leading in your life. I think sometimes, we don't have a lot of time to reflect and figure it out. And so a lot of times I'm just going to go kind of what on, the gut feeling or what you might say is kind of the spirit leading me. Sometimes you pause, sometimes you don't have time to pause. Sometimes you look back and go, I maybe could have handled that differently. But I think in a perfect world, it's step back, it's contemplate the situation. If I have time, I'll reflect on the situation with, at least one person, if not a few different people, to kind of help me see different perspectives, like you said. When you see that, whatever incident happened, it would be nice to be able to go and talk to those other three people and go, okay, what did you see? Because here's what I saw, and this is what I was thinking. Did you see the same thing as me? So it would be nice to do that. It's just not always conducive for us to have those conversations, but I try to do that as much as I possibly can. If there's somebody that's going through something in a similar fashion, I'll try to say, hey, give me your perspective on this. I talk with a lot of young quarterbacks all the time. And, what I know having played the game is that, you can have a coach that's in your room teaching you every single day. And, they teach you a certain play or whatever that may be. And yep, you can go out and do exactly what that coach says. But I often tell these guys, hey, give me a call and let me give you a different perspective on it. Maybe it's conducive to what your coach is telling you, so it just builds more confidence. Maybe it's a little bit different and it, I say it in a certain way, or I see it a certain way that can help you to decipher, that play or that situation a little bit better. And, and to me, I think that's always important because we all do come from certain backgrounds and certain experiences where it's easy for us to only kind of see through one lens. And I love it when somebody opens up my eyes to a different perspective where I've got to step back and go, I've never thought about it from that perspective before. And it makes you, either get more convicted with what you believe, or it opens you up to go, hey, I need to do a little bit more research. I need to dive into this a little bit more to figure out what is the best thing for me to do in this particular situation, and best for all parties involved.
That's a great answer. I'm curious about this because in sports, and yours in particular, I mean, in our sport of tennis, rarely are we in a situation where we have people coming at us, or a tennis ball might come at us. But in your situation, it can be life threatening. You have to react super quick, and it's automatic. And I know that a bit from tennis. I react quick on some things that other people who haven't had that sports background. So when you left playing sports, when someone started approaching you, just like what did you ever get on your toes because you're so used to defending yourself or reacting from a football sense of mindset?
Well, I mean, I think I would say, not so much just reactionary, I think athletically, but I think, as you guys know, there's an ultimate confidence that you need to have to compete at the highest level. And so there has to be a conviction or a confidence in who you are and what you believe and why you do what you do, whether that's training, whether that's eating, what you do in the moment in between the lines, but you have to be fully convicted in it. And that's, I think, one thing that I find is that I'm fully convicted in a lot of things that I do or a lot of views that I have. And I kind of go into it like, I think like probably most people, well, okay, I think I'm right. I think what I believe because I've thought about it. I like where I stand on this. And so, I find myself very often going, okay, you're going to have to prove to me that what I believe or what I think about myself is not true. And so, yeah, I think sometimes it can be a little bit more confrontational because it's like, okay, I think I'm right, or I'm confident in what I believe, and I go in that way. But it's one area that I think I've grown a lot over the years is, not always to speak first, and not always worrying about, I talked about it a little bit because I do television now. And, when you analyze different things, and you'll see it all over television, is that when somebody asks a question, you almost feel like everybody on a panel feels like they have to win the question. And I want to be an analyst that doesn't try to win the question, but brings, education to it, and, can share my perspective. And then I allow the people listening to be able to develop their own opinions instead of feeling like I have to win the question. And I think sometimes I do that in life as well. Is like, I feel like, when a topic is brought up, I got to win the topic. And I'm getting better at going, okay, it's not about winning the topic. It's about figuring out what the right perspective is on this. And I may not always have the right perspective because I don't have maybe the background or the experience that other people have. And so I feel like I've gotten better with that. But yes, I agree with you, is that because we're so used to, having, if you want to say, defend yourself, or having this inner confidence in who we are and what we do and what we believe, because it's what takes us down that path, to excellence in our sport, that it's easy to kind of stay on that path when you step outside the lines, and you have different conversations, or you get into, different debates with people, is, hey, I'm right, you're wrong, and go about it that way, instead of going, well, I don't know, this is my perspective. What's your perspective? Now let's try to evolve and figure out what is the best perspective to have on whatever said topic is.
That's great. Well, Adriana is excited to join this conversation, I know. So here she is.
I had to unmute myself. Hi, Kurt.
Hello.
Hi. It is wonderful to be on the podcast with you. Thank you for being with us.
You got it.
And congratulations on making such a beautiful and inspiring movie, American Underdog, based on your life. I thoroughly enjoyed watching it, and now I'm ready to tackle anything coming my way.
I like it. Yeah, we've had great response from the movie. It's an interesting process when they go through and make a movie about your life, and you don't get to tell the whole story, and it doesn't quite always play out exactly like maybe it played out in real life. But I was very happy with the finished product, and I was extremely happy with the way that they were able to tie in my wife's story, my son's story, and my story, because I felt like that was where the impact was going to be. We talk about American Underdog, and a lot of people talk about, obviously me, and understand my journey. But I feel like we're kind of a family of American underdogs, whether it's Brenda being a single parent, one time on food stamps, or Zach suffering this traumatic brain injury and having to overcome that. When you talk about being impacted, I think it spoke to a lot of different people in a lot of different places, not just athletic dreamers, maybe like us, but people that, are dreaming about a better life in a lot of different ways.
Oh, absolutely. I've connected very much, and I haven't played football, and when I'm an athlete, but not even so much it was from a different standpoint of view. It was wonderful, really, really inspiring. Andrea and I have helped teach art to blind children and wheelchair-bound children. They perceive life differently from the rest of us in such unique and beautiful ways. They feel and see through their hands. They hear your heartbeat. They hear your breath shift. It's something I can't really explain with words. The way they connect with you, their spirit has no limits.
Yeah.
What have you learned from your son and all your children that you were surprised by?
Yeah, I mean, we have 7 children, and, they're all different in a lot of different ways. So I think I've learned from all of them. I've learned how to be a better parent. I've learned how to parent differently from all of my different siblings, or all of my different kids and their siblings. I think specifically, speaking to Zach, I think a lot of the things that you just said speak directly to who Zach is that Zach, he's legally blind, so he doesn't see everything that we see. But what he does see is that he sees the heart of people. And it's amazing watching how he gravitates to quality people. Even though he doesn't know them, or he doesn't see them a particular way, because I think so often we get caught up in what we can touch and what we can see, and the visual effects a lot of different things that we do in life. That's the beautiful thing with him, is he just wants to be around people that have great hearts, that care for him, that love him. And it's a beautiful thing to see, because I think we lose sight of that too often. That idea of just being in relationship with good people and people that bring good to our lives. The joy in the little things. I think that's another thing, is that it's so easy in life, and especially when you have a level of success, in whatever field, to get so focused on the big things and the next thing, and the next big thing, and what I'm going to accomplish because I've done this. Now I got to accomplish the next thing. And Zach has an unbelievable perspective on just enjoying the little things in life. Whatever that may be. Every time we get into a car, he turns on the music, and it doesn't matter what kind of music. He loves it all. He knows the words to every song. He turns the volume up to 10, and he just sings at the top of his lungs. And he doesn't care if he's any good. He doesn't care who's listening. He's just like, man, this is my moment. This is what I love. And he just gets lost in it. And I think, so often, we lose sight of just the simplicity of life. And Zach brings us back to just enjoying the little things and laughing about the little things. And every time he steps into a room, he brightens the room. And those are reminders to me of the kind of way the way that I want to live, and the kind of person that I want to be. And so I love that, because it is a different perspective, and the struggles that he's dealt with on a daily basis, and the limitations that people have put on him, and the circumstances that he finds himself in. He's taught me so much through all of that, that every day, I still got to fight it. It's not easy, to kind of understand that perspective and live in that perspective. But he's a constant reminder to me of how I want to live, and who I want to be, and how I want to enter every room. And, and I think that's the beautiful thing, is that, a lot of people see Zach, and when they see him, they see the blindness, or they see some of the physical disabilities that he has, or the things that he can't do. I think the beautiful thing for me, having, I just turned 34 last week, spending 34 years with him, is that he reminds me of all the things that he can do, and all the amazing talents that he does have, and helps me to, to walk through life, not just, basing things or I want to say, getting a picture of someone based on what I see, but truly getting to know them. And then once getting to know them, being able to see all the gifts and talents and skills that they have. We say that, we talk about the disabled world a lot, and we often say that all of our kids have disabilities, right? They all have things that they're not good at, things that they struggle with, while at the same time, every one of our kids has amazing abilities. And that's, I think, what Zach reminds us of every single day, is see the abilities of each and every person. Don't get hung up on seeing the disabilities or seeing the things that people aren't the strongest at. And I believe too often in life, and in the world we live in, people are trying to pull out the disabilities instead of trying to pull out the abilities that each and every person around them has. And I think if we all did that, if we all kind of lived through that lens, man, our world would be a much better place.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Yes, absolutely. It opened up my whole world when I was around, and I'm still around these children. I'm so grateful. That's what I felt when I was around them. I'm like, this is just a whole new world of seeing the world and living it. And they're so joyful. And exactly. And you point out what they excel at, and they bring the best out of you at the same time. So beautiful. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we'll learn from each other.
Always.
You often express gratitude for your success through your faith. Experiencing many hardships, were you always able to see the bright light at the end of the tunnel?
Always. Yeah, I think there were times that the light was a little more dim than other times. Mm-hmm. I do believe that I was always very confident in who I was, believed that God had created me for the purpose of playing football. Now, it doesn't always mean that my dream or my end game is the same end game as God's, but I did believe that that was supposed to be a part of it. So from the standpoint of wondering if I was capable of doing something, I think I always saw the light. I always believed what I was capable of. I think where it got more dim was the fact that that I knew that if I was going to reach my goal, that somebody else was going to have to give me an opportunity. And there were times that I wondered if I would ever get that opportunity to actually showcase, what I felt I could do on a football field. I sat on the bench for 4 years in college. So, that light got pretty dim. You can't even play in college. The chances of being able to play in the NFL seemed pretty slim. So it was tough. When I got cut from an NFL team and ended up working in a grocery store for a period of time, I often tell people, there's lots of tough times, in most of our journeys in life. But probably the hardest time for me was when, I went from that NFL training camp to the grocery store. And it wasn't just because I was working in a grocery store, because a lot of people have their grocery store moment, right, where things don't work out and they've got to do something. But the hardest thing for me was that nobody had ever gone from, I always joke, from aisle 7 to the NFL. Like, it had never happened before. So no one had ever laid out a path to go, okay, here's the steps that you take if you're going to go from here to the NFL. And so that, that light at the end of the tunnel got really dim then, because it was like, I don't even know what the first step is. I don't know where to go from here, to get back on this path to achieve my dream. So, so it was pretty dim at that point as well. But, but as I said, I think that the individual, the personal confidence I had in myself was always so important. And, I often share when people ask me, kind of about that, when I was going through those times of, on the bench or working in the grocery store or playing arena football, whatever that was, that how did I stay confident? And yeah, I know you guys have heard the story of David and Goliath. It's one of my favorite stories in the Bible. But, a lot of people, when they hear the story, they think of kind of the idea of the underdog, right? The American underdog, and, this underdog that beats the giant. And obviously a beautiful part of the story. But my favorite part of the story is when David is talking to, King Saul at the time. And, King Saul kind of looks at him and goes, okay, why do you think that you can take down this giant? I mean, like, we got these trained warriors. You're coming off, you're coming out of the fields with your flock, and you're delivering, lunch to your brothers, and you think you can take down this giant. What is it about you that makes you think that you can do this? And of course, he first leans to the fact that, well, I serve a big God, and I know what my God is capable of. And so I felt very much like that as well. But the other thing that he said to King Saul was, well, why I know that I can do this is because every time I've faced a giant in life, I've been successful. Now, it wasn't Goliath. He talked about, being, protecting his flock. And when a bear came, he defended his flock from that bear. And then when a wolf came, he defended his flock from that wolf. And so every time one of these giants that was supposed to take him down or take his flock down came by, he defeated that giant. He was successful. And it built up his confidence in him, where he's like, I can take on anything that God lays in my path, because I know the God that I serve and I know what he's prepared me for. I know I can handle anything that comes my way. Now, here's the next giant. Here's this big giant in front of me, and I understand why everybody else is afraid, but that's why I'm not afraid, is because I've got confidence in what I can do. I've got confidence in my God, and together we can do whatever we want to do. And so I've always leaned on that, because, I sat on the bench for 4 years in college, but I played 1 year in college. And that 1 year that I played, I was the player of the year in our conference. I played 3 years in arena football, and I played in the championship game twice, and I was the best quarterback. So where everybody else was looking at all these negative things, I was always going back to those moments when I had a ball in my hands and I was between the lines. And nobody else, or nobody could ever, show me a time that I wasn't successful when I was in that situation. So I rode that wave, even when that light got dim at the end of the tunnel, and said, I know what I'm capable of. I know that God's got a plan for my life. And now I just need to keep, riding this train and staying on these tracks until that opportunity comes. And I know when that opportunity comes, I'm going to be ready for it. I've been prepared for it, and I know what I'm capable of. And so I love that aspect of that story because, David didn't know that he was going to fight Goliath when he, was heading to that battlefield, but he was prepared, he was ready, and he was confident that he could do anything that was laid out in front of him because of his past experience. And I took my past experience and I lent that to the kind of that same idea. So when I got to the NFL and I got my opportunity, it was a big giant. And everybody, saw the stuff that I worked in a grocery store and I played arena football. There's no way this kid can be successful, just like there's no way David could take down Goliath. But this inner confidence, because of those experiences and because of what I know God had taken me through, prepared me and had me ready, for when that opportunity did present itself, that I could make sure I break through.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yes, it's all part of the plan. That's wonderful. Your bond with your wife, Brenda, is truly unique and everlasting. Brenda openly shares about the struggle she had to endure. You both had to. Why do you think you and Brenda got through all the challenges and grew even stronger as a family and a loving, devoted couple?
Well, I mean, she's an amazing woman. So it makes life easier when you're doing it with someone that is amazing. But I think, when you look at both of our journeys, we both had, great successes and we both had great struggles. And I think we were able to really balance each other out really well. When you have those moments where you're wondering, can I do this? All you got to do is, look across the bed or look across the table or look at the person sitting next to you and go, man, I mean, if she's able to overcome all of that and go from here to there, of course I can accomplish this. So I think, we balance each other out really well. We challenge each other really, really well because of what we've been able to overcome and what we've been able to get through is that we don't ever look at any task as impossible. Because of our own experiences and because of the fact that we believe together, we can do and we can get through anything. And so, it's one of those things where I think we're different. We challenge each other. She's very strong. I'm very strong. But that's what I love is that every day, she challenges me to be better. And I believe that's what relationships should be about. That's what marriage should be about. And we're not just stagnant and we just don't stand pat and go, okay, we figured this out. Every day, she challenges me in new ways and she challenges my thought process and she challenges me as a parent and, as a coach in all the different areas. And I love it because I don't think I'm done yet. I don't think I'm a finished product. I think God's still got things he wants to do with me. But I want to use every day to be able to get better in different areas. And I've got a wife that is willing to challenge me in those areas and encourage me in those areas. And to me, it's a beautiful relationship when you have that, is that it's not just, he's a good guy and, I love him and we just want to stay together. She's like, man, we're not done. You're not done. I'm not done, even though we've been through stuff and life has been, challenging, but really good also in these first 50 years. I think we really look at it like we got 30 or 40 more. What are we going to do with them? How are we going to get better? What can we accomplish in these next 30 or 40, whether that just be in our relationship together and growing closer and getting to know more about one another and being able to mesh better, or whether it's, big picture, outside, of our house. What do we want to do? What do we want to accomplish? What do we want to be? How can we impact people, through the rest of our lives? I love chocolate. And so, about 6 months ago, I was speaking, and the night before we were given our speech, actually, Brendan and I were speaking together. And the night before we were giving our speech, we were sitting around with some friends and we were eating Dove chocolates. And if you like Dove chocolates, you know that on the inside of the tinfoil wrappers of the Dove chocolates, they have motivational quotes. It's kind of like a chocolate fortune cookie. So way better than a fortune cookie, but because I love chocolate, but it's like a chocolate fortune cookie. And so, we were sitting around talking and eating chocolate and, we would read what was inside. And one of our friends challenged us and said, okay, I want you to see how many of these sayings you can get in your speech tomorrow night. So we had a little bit of fun with that. I got a few in, so I won a few bucks from that. But the reason I bring it up is because from that moment when I gave that speech, every single speech that I've given, probably every podcast that I've done since then, I bring up one of those things that was on, one of those Dove chocolates. Because, the saying on it was, I want to live in such a way today that I make my past self jealous. I want to live in such a way today that I make my past self jealous. And, I look back and I go, man, it's been a good 50 years. I mean, won Super Bowls and I've won MVPs and I've gotten to the Hall of Fame and they made a movie about the first 50 have been pretty good. And so it would be easy to kind of go, okay, I'm good, I'm done, I've accomplished a lot. But it reminds me every day is that, man, I want to make that first 50 jealous. I want to spend the next 50 years making that first 50 jealous. And that whatever that means and whatever that looks like, whether it's another career, whether it's from a charitable standpoint, whether it's, you talking about my relationship with my wife, whether it's, the first 30 years of our marriage, I want these next 30 to be so good that they make the first 30 jealous, that I just want to be better and I want to grow. And I want to know that I'm not a finished product yet. And I want to go through life looking for ways that I can have greater impact or be better, in the next 50 years. And so it's kind of become a motto that is always in the back of my mind is that, man, I want to live better today than I did yesterday. And I want to make yesterday's Kurt jealous of who I am today and all these different things that we're talking about.
That's such a beautiful quote. Thank you so much for sharing, Kurt. Karen has prepared questions for you. I think she's the next up.
Hi, Kurt. It's a pleasure to meet you.
You as well.
So I was raised Catholic as I was growing up. However, through my leukemia experience, because I'm a childhood leukemia survivor, my parents started going to a Christian church. So we started going to a Christian church and we loved it. It changed our lives completely. And I'm still Christian. But, sometimes a tragic experience can lead you to seek God or to explore something different. And like in my instance, we definitely started getting closer to God. So I know that you went to a Catholic high school. However, I read that your dedication to Christianity started in 1997. What led you to having a deeper dedication with God at that time, at that point of your life?
Yeah, as I had mentioned earlier, I'm so grateful for my upbringing and, kind of my mom's commitment to faith when I was young. But, we often talk in Christianity about relationship. And, early on, I don't know if I would, constitute my faith journey as a relationship. Or it was more of, an education, learning what the Bible had to say and learning who Jesus was and understanding what he did on the cross and all of that stuff. But I often say that, my early, faith life was more like I had God as kind of my spare tire, where I would just go down, the road, and as long as everything was smooth and as long as my tires were full, God just kind of stayed in the trunk. And, I was kind of doing life on my own until, as you mentioned, something happened. Oh, I got a flat tire. Oh, okay, get a flat tire. That's when you go and you go find your spare and you're like, okay, God, I need help with this. As you hear in all the movies, right? Hey, I promise, if you help me with this, you get me a date with the pretty cheerleader, or you help me make it to the NFL, or you help me do well on this test, I'll commit the rest of my life to you. And that's really what my journey was like early on. So I had the basis for everything. But there was no real relationship there. It was kind of like God was there for me and I would pull him out when I felt I needed him. And then I would, fix the tire, I'd throw him back in the trunk and I'd go about my merry way. And so it wasn't until later on, and really, my wife, who had become a Christian at a young age, and then she had been through the stuff that she had been through, she'd gone through infidelity in her marriage and different things like that. So when we got together, she had 2 kids at the time, And so it was very important for her to have the right person in her life, to get into a relationship with the right people. And so a big part of that for her was she wanted to know where I stood in my faith, like what I believed. And at that time in my life, I was kind of like, oh, don't worry about it. I've got a relationship with God, and my relationship is mine and yours is yours. And, and we're good. And that wasn't really good enough for her. She's like, okay, I want to know, why do you believe what you believe? I mean, I know you were raised in the Catholic Church, but tell me why you believe it. Where does it say that in the Bible? Where do you get your information and develop your perspective? And so a lot of it I don't really know. A lot of it I think was simply just, well, they told me this. Like they told me this in school. They told me this in class, or church. So I believed it because they told it to me, and it wasn't developed on my own. And so, being a competitor, being, an athlete, it was like she was challenging me. It's like, okay, here you go. I want to know why you believe that. Show me where it says this. And so, so she challenged me in a lot of those ways. And so I went on a journey really to prove to her that I knew what I was talking about. Like, okay, you say this, let me show you why I believe this. And in that process, I really opened the Bible for the first time and really dove in and really started to read it. And I got involved in a Bible study with some guys when I was playing arena football. And, those guys were kind of asking me some similar questions to Brenda, on the other side. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Like all these similar questions are coming at me. And I really didn't have definitive answers. So I went in search of those answers. And, when you pick up the Bible and actually read it, you come to understand that the idea has never been that God is supposed to be there necessarily for us. Like I'm chasing this dream and God's supposed to be that spare tire that's supposed to help me get to my dream. The ultimate, message in the Bible is that, we're supposed to represent God and we're supposed to be vessels for God and to be used by him. And so it was through that process where I started to develop this relationship where, where it was having a conversation, where it was stepping back in different situations and not just going, okay, what's the best thing for me? What's going to help me to accomplish what I want to accomplish? And my perspective changed to go, okay, God, what do you want me to do here? Like, what's the goal here? What, at the end of the day, I want to glorify you as opposed to glorifying me. And that's where the shift really happened. And a big part of it was actually watching my wife. She lost her parents tragically in a tornado. And, I've seen numerous people, Kieran, that go through different things like you go through, or, we've got friends that have lost a child. I've seen my wife lose her parents. And I've seen people go lots of different directions from a faith perspective when that stuff happens. What I saw with my wife is I saw her never waver in her belief in who God was and in her relationship with God. But I saw it as a relationship, right? She didn't just, accept everything like, oh, well, okay, my parents died in a tornado, it must be God's plan. She was angry. She was mad. She would have conversations with God, like, God, why does this happen? Why did you do this? Why didn't you prevent this? And I loved that because to me, that's what relationship is. I've been married to her for 30 years, or we've been together for 30 years. And, that's what our relationship is that it's not always just, oh, she did this. Okay, I'll just accept that as whatever. We argue sometimes and we disagree sometimes and we get mad at each other sometimes. But the bottom line is none of that pushes us away from our relationship. It allows us to grow and see different perspectives and work through the differences that we have, the things that we don't agree on. And I saw her do that with God when she went through, this situation with her parents. And I think that's what ultimately, sold me on this idea of Christianity and this understanding of a relationship is that our relationship with God should look just like our relationship, looks like with, our significant other or, a close friend where, we can get mad and we can ask questions and we can disagree, yet it doesn't push us away from, that relationship and understanding our roles in that relationship. And so I think it was through that situation, along with those other things that I was mentioning earlier, that really got me to understand what Christianity truly is, what it's really all about. And it's not about, going to a Catholic school or going to a Christian school or going to church every Sunday. Those things can be great. And I already told you the benefits that I believe I got from those things. But ultimately, those things are not what Christianity is all about. Christianity is about that relationship and understanding that relationship. And it was, later on in life when I dove in and I was challenged in that area and I got to see it firsthand to go, okay, this is what I want. This is, the kind of relationship that I want with my God, to be able to have and ask those tough questions and go through those moments where it's okay to be mad. But just like we do, in our marriage, and when we got married, we said there are no options. We will stay married and we will be married, forever, because we're not, because we gave ourselves no outs. And I think that's important in our relationship with God too, because there are going to be things that don't go our direction and things that we're going to question and things that we're going to get mad at and go, God, why are you doing this? This isn't what's best for me. Those things are going to happen. But there's no option in terms of the fact that I'm going to keep following God and I'm going to keep believing that that somehow, some way, that He's got a plan in this, or that He's going to use this, to have an impact, some way, some shape, some form. That's going to happen. But to me, there's no way out. Even as I wrestle with different things, and even as we have moments. My wife and I still have days where she won't talk to me for a day or two because she's mad at me, and that's okay. Where sometimes I might not talk to God, or I might be mad at God for a couple of days, but I'm always coming back, and I'm always going to make sure, that I don't allow anything to break that relationship. And that to me is, for me personally, that's what Christianity is. It's that deep rooted relationship that says, hey, you can ask me, you can get mad at me. We'll have great moments, we'll have tough moments, but through it all, we're going to stay together and we're going to stay committed to one another. And we're going to walk this journey together. And that's really where, my turn took place. And it helped me to evolve in my understanding of what religion or what faith is all about. And more than all of that other stuff, it's about the relationship that I have. And so I see it completely differently now than I did for really the first 26, 27 years of my life.
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing. I mean, it is hard. I know you mentioned a lot about your wife's history, like her having her parents dying in the tragic accident. And you mentioned her a lot. But however, I also recently went through something very tragic, and it shook my faith, to be honest. So when what has there been a tragic moment in your life that has shaken your faith?
I think shaken is is an interesting word, because, to what degree does that hold significance, I guess. But I think, yeah, I think there are always, different moments, where, I think there's times when I just look at my son, Zach, who we talked about earlier, and there's times that I'll see my other 6 kids, and the fact that they're able to do so many different things and they're able to have so many different possibilities in life. When then I look at Zach and I wonder what could have been, what if he didn't have that accident, if that didn't happen, and so I think there's all kinds of moments like that make me question, okay, God, why would this happen? Or if we got this great God, how could this transpire? But again, I don't know if it's ever been shaken to the point where I've gotten to this perspective and go, well, because this didn't work out based on what I wanted, that forget you, God. Like, I look at the big picture and I go, I don't think God wanted to send His Son to die on a cross for all of us either. Like, I don't think everything in the plan was exactly how God had written it either, just so it was all good for Him. I don't think it's worked out that way. And so, although there has been, different things that make me question and can make me angry at times, or, kind of want to yell at God and scream out to God. I don't think there's anything really that's taken me to the point of being on the cusp of turning the other direction. Because again, we talked about at the very beginning, perspective. And I think perspective is so important, and always coming back to that idea that, when God created all this, he didn't create it like it is now. He didn't create it in a way that he felt like he was going to have to send his son to die on a cross for all that wasn't the ultimate design of things. But, but stuff happens. And ultimately, I feel like God's still working everything out, and God's still got a plan that goes well beyond however many years I live on earth. And I ultimately find confidence in that and find peace and hope in that at all times. And so, even though there's been those tough moments, and Karen, I've seen friends. We've got some friends that that lost a son, 4 years ago, and I've seen how it's shaken their faith, and it's pushed them the other direction, and they sit back and wonder how can this happen? We serve this God, and how could he allow this to take place? And it's a tough question to answer, right? And it's tough to get grips on, I guess, to understand how that works. This whole idea of we got this great God and this good God, yet there's all kinds of bad things that happen, and how does that all fit together? And so I've seen people, be shaken and shaken to the point where they've turned the other direction. I guess I would just say that, I'm always trying to step back, see the big picture, understand, ultimately, this whole faith journey, beginning of the Bible to the end, from the beginning of creation to the end, that there's lots of things that happen that I don't believe God intended to happen. I don't think God wanted to happen. I don't think God caused them to happen. And I always have to stand to that, even though I didn't want it to happen either. And I didn't want God to let it happen, and I wanted God to change it and all of that stuff. I hold true to that idea that, unfortunately, things are going to happen, and there's going to be, there's going to be sadness, and there's going to be disease, and there's going to be death, and those things are going to occur. And I think it's very important, at least for me, not to step back and ever go, well, God did this. I'm blaming him, because I think once we do that, and we just put full blame on God in the situation, then it's easy to have our faith shaken, or it's easy to walk the other direction, go, well, it's his fault, right? It's kind of like in a relationship. If you having an argument with someone, and it just continually comes back to, well, they're wrong, and it's all their fault. It's like, well, I don't want to be in a relationship with someone that's all wrong, and it's always got creating different things to happen. But just like in our marriage, I think oftentimes we can disagree on stuff, and sometimes I got to step back and go, okay, where was my role in this? Maybe what did I miss, or what did I do, or where is there just a differing of perspective, or a differing of belief in certain situations. So again, kind of a long-winded answer to go. I think there's always times that it gets shaken, and you have questions, and you wonder, okay, is this the right thing to believe, and is God really out there, and all of those things. I think the more we can step back and understand the big picture in the entire story, in the story of Jesus, and why we're Christians to begin with, and then we start to understand, yes, life isn't always great for us, but life isn't always great for God either. That it's not just this perfect world that he's up there on the throne and everything's worked out perfectly for him. That we're walking this journey together in that relationship, and stuff is going to happen. But I ultimately believe that God's going to work it all out for good, and we're going to spend eternity together.
That's it's interesting how you say that, especially in closing here, with the the perception, and to do it together. And I know this is my 38th year at Little Star Foundation, and so there's a lot of kids with cancer that I know in spirit are so enjoying this. Like they're just, oh wow, I followed Kurt, but now they're in spirit. And I just want to bring up one in closing, Trip Robbins, and this might help you, Karen, as well. I know you didn't get to spend that much time with him at all, but he was a young boy with cancer. He came through our programs. He participated year-round programs, and for a long time, throughout his teenage years, always had great faith. We had these enormous conversations about, like, we thought we were born with a gift of faith. So we had this dialogue. He relapsed. He lost his mom to cancer. He's from a third generation military family, and he got strong enough to be able to, he wanted to serve. So he went into remission, wanted to serve, and no one would take him in the certain, he wanted to do the Air Force. He wanted to fly planes like his dad did, and they wouldn't take him there. But then he found the Ranger unit that would be able to take him. So he served 2 tours and saw a lot of things. And all throughout those conversations, from when he was a boy, from when he relapsed, when he lost his mom, when he served overseas, his faith was always in such a place where he knew exactly what you just said, that, you know, God's not causing these things. God is in a relationship with you to help you through those things. And so he always kept that. And then recently, this was late last year, he passed away. He relapsed several times from cancer, and he left a beautiful wife and 2 small children. And it was something that you see someone throughout, and he just kept getting knocked down and kept getting knocked down with all these things, and it hurts. And so anyone that's going through something, who's listening, there's just so many wonderful things that you shared, Kurt, that they can hold on to and listen over to, and maybe, you know, pray on or meditate on. But so I just wanted to bring him up because I know he's just was listening and cheering us on and going, more, Kurt, more, like, you know, let's hear this. Because so often people do have faith and they do want to learn more, and they get shut down because maybe someone's uncomfortable. And so it's like what you said, find the people that are able to, you can open up to, or that you can share, like, you know, what you said, Karen, about how, you know, you had a hard time, you know, it was difficult, and how do you get through that? And so that's so important. And so lastly, to close this, if you wouldn't mind, when your daughter was very young, she was an entrepreneur, and the story goes, and I just want to be sure on this, you had to buy your Super Bowl rings back from her for 75 cents. Is that what happened? Is that true?
Yeah, I'm going to get into that story in a second. I want to go back to just your point, because I think we do that with our son Zach a lot as well. Is that, you know, there's times where, you know, I would say just on a weekly basis where, you know, I see Zach and something transpires, or I see one of my other kids doing something, and I just, you know, I kind of just look up at God and go, God, why? You know, like what could have been? You know, where, you know, would he be right now at 34 without, you know, suffering the accident that he did, and kids, and what would his career be, and all of that? And then, you know, I'm always brought back to reality from the fact that he now lives in a place that is called Treasure House. And it is a community living facility for young adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities that my wife and I started about 5 years ago, for families like ours that wonder what life is going to look like for their child with disabilities, and you know, what the possibilities are and what the purpose is, and all of those things. Can they chase their passions? So we started it about 5 years ago. And so, you know, the verse in Romans, you know, 9:29, where it says, God doesn't cause things to happen, but he causes all things to work together for the good of those that are called according to his purpose. And so, you know, we often think about it because we wonder, would we see the disability community the same way that we see it now? Would we be advocates for the disability community? You know, would we have been the way we are now? Would we have started Treasure House? We believe Treasure House can be a national and a worldwide movement to allow families with children with disabilities to live and to dream differently. And so, you know, we wrestle with that. Is that, man, every week I think, man, you know, what if, you know, if I could go back and you know, and Zach wouldn't have to suffer the injury. And then, you know, we went and did a birthday party at Treasure House last week for Zach. We did a dance party, and we watched every one of the residents, you know, dance for 3 hours straight, you know, grab the microphone. And I mean, it just, the joy and the love, and, you know, the way that this place has become home for all these young men and women, you know, makes you step back and go, wow, you know, look what God's done with, you know, with this accident, this incident that happened, that we would trade in a heartbeat. that, we wish we could go back and do it all over again. But through this, we've watched God work in some incredible ways, whether it be through Zach or through just our mindset being different now and seeing the community and seeing those with disabilities in a different way, and being able to help them dream differently. And so, so those are the kind of things when I talk about relationship that you wrestle with, that it's okay to ask those questions. But then at the same time, I'm going, okay, with God, this did happen. So now what? Now, what do we do with this? And how do we have impact? And what do you want to do through this, this accident 34 years ago to be able to impact the lives of other people and change the direction of the lives of other people? And so, kind of that same idea that you're talking about is always trying to fight back to gain perspective on what God's trying to do in my life and what he wants to do with me. And through the platform or through the situation that I've been given, how can I have the greatest impact for him? And that's kind of how we, try to navigate this relationship, this faith relationship, this Christian relationship that we have, to make sure that we understand God's, part in all of this, our part in all of this, and then, being able to connect to impact lives. All right, going back to my daughter. So, my Super Bowl rings, people ask me all the time when I go speaking, where are they? Do you have them in a safe? Where do you put them? And oftentimes I don't really know. Like I don't really, I think they're back behind me right now, but I'm not really sure. So my wife oftentimes would kind of set up the office with different things. And, one time somebody came over and just said, okay, hey, can I see your Super Bowl ring? And then I had, 2 other championship rings, that I had as well. Can I see your rings? And I'm like, yeah, come in the office, and come in the office, and they wouldn't be here. And I'm like, I don't really know where they're at. One time I remember, we had a cleaning lady that found them underneath the couch. But when my daughters were young, they decided to put on like a thrift sale in their, in their room. So they got all their stuff. And they asked if I would come in and check it out and obviously see if I could buy some stuff so they could make 75 cents or $1. And sure enough, I go in and they've got my 3 rings on a table for sale. And I joke with everybody, I didn't really know where they were, and I had to buy them back. But I was able to buy those three rings for 75 cents. So I thought it was a pretty good deal in getting them back. But yeah, you never know where things are going to show up in the house. And I have kids that are more than willing to take advantage of every opportunity to make a buck.
That's a great story, and so many other ones too. And I know you also help children with cancer. And so if ever you want to partner together, but I also want to let you know that anything I can do to help you, you have your own foundation and you do incredible things. And so anytime I can lend a hand with my racket or anything that my tennis racket, anything, just certainly count on that. And we send love and prayer and blessings to your family. Like you said, that when someone's gone through something, it's like with Trip. I mean, he was such an inspiration all the time, never complained to me, like just had that. And so all of us have that. All of us have a story. All of us have our own relationship with God, but we all have a story. And when we connect and share those, wow, it can grow in someone else's life and their heart and their soul and spirit. And so hopefully we've done that for audiences. We know you always do that with all your audiences. So thank you for being that model for so many audiences around the world, and just really appreciate it. And like I said, love and prayers and blessings to you and your family.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate the positive stuff that you're doing, the encouragement that you're sharing. We need more of this, right? Because as you said, we all have
Absolutely.
our own dreams and we all have our own struggles. And, I think it's, again, easy for us, to see different people struggle and go, well, it's not as bad as my struggle. And, we often reflect on that in our house and kind of say, you know what, we only know what we know, right? And so oftentimes, well, not oftentimes, all the time, our worst struggle is our worst struggle. And just because it might not connect or be at the same level that we think somebody else's struggle is, we all have those struggles. And life is about being able to navigate through that and encourage people in those different things. And so I appreciate what you guys are doing and using your journeys and your stories to be able to encourage people and help them through and have a positive outlook, positive perspective on life, because that's one thing that I've realized is perspective is so key. Attitude is so key at being able to take whatever we have, whether it's great successes or great failures or great struggles and trials, and being able to turn them around and impact other people with them.
Absolutely. And we just started the Little Starlight podcast. We already were busy with the foundation work, but the whole point was the world has such suffering. There's sufferings going on, and we never want to diminish what someone's going through, but we want to present people who have extraordinary success in overcoming their challenges and their difficulties and their pain and suffering. And if something can resonate with someone somewhere and lift up their spirits that day, that hour, that day and that hour could change their whole life. And perhaps they're going to be someone to rise up to help somebody else. And so you never know who you can reach. God has that, arranged. And so we just are going forward. So really, really super appreciated. So thank you.